Welcome to the registration webinar. Today we're going to be covering the patient information tab. And I'm also going to go over a few of the changes that were made as we moved the CMSNet registration from legacy to web. Well, that's the first change. Registration did move from legacy to a new module in the web. It's called registration, and you'll see as we go forward that registration was broken into several tabs to make it easier to navigate around. So you'll see that through all the different webinars that are recorded. The change also included the move over to the web, included the SCI inquiry component, as well as duplicate records, how to mark a record as duplicate in our system. I'm going to give you a few of the field and functionality changes. We removed the requirement of a mother's maiden name, so we kept the field. However, we needed a not mandatory required field. We introduced a new checkbox on the patient registration on the information tab that allows you to check it yes if a case is transferring to another county. The only rules for this checkbox are that the case needs to be in an active or a pending or reopened pending status. You cannot mark the transferring out of county for a closed, denied, or not open case. It's removed in those statuses. Then another change that we made that's pretty significant is that the diagnosis code is now optional. We allow you to register the case into CMSNet without a diagnosis code. However, when you make the case eligible in medical eligibility or issue service authorizations, the case does need to have a ICD-9 diagnosis code assigned. And when you do make that assignment of medical eligibility, we back update registration. Another change is that the telephone number is no longer required for the patient address contact. Previously, you had to put the phone number in both contact locations, and so now we only need it on one. It's mandatorily required on primary address only. Another change we made on registration is that the medical therapy unit and the school information, we no longer allow you to enter it on patient registration itself. You need to access the MTP module, and you can do the school assignment there as well as MTU assignment. And once you make those assignments in MTP, we display that information on registration on the addressee tab as a contact. It also prints on the face sheet. We removed the case status transfer active and its relationship to the transfer letters. Excuse me. So the transfer letters are now available in the web generation 2, as you know. Another change that we made is in relation to the out-of-home placement details. We used to ask if the client was placed out of home, if it was voluntary or involuntarily, and the location of that placement. We've made that now part of the addressee contact for the client. So when you add a new client on the addressee tab, there's some checkboxes where you can mark if the patient is placed out of home and if it was involuntary or voluntarily placed. We also made some changes in the caseload assignment section, and I'll have further details as we go through the webinar. So one thing to think about when I discuss that is if your county participates in the caseload distribution available in CMSNet or not. So we call that a participating county or a non-participating county. We have several counties that are now participating in the distribution, and then we do have several that still are not. But we allow you to create caseloads on the fly through patient registration. Just as you're registering the client, you can assign case managers and nurses and create team associations. And that's for the counties that are not participating in caseload distribution. They will continue to use the caseload management module that's available on the web. Some other changes we made are related to the referral sources. And we used to allow a lot of free text entries, and now we are incorporating some tableized selections for standardization. So if your referral sources are coming from places like Healthy Families Plans, Managed Care Plans, providers, schools, or regional centers, we have all those tableized in CMSNet, and you're allowed to search for those by the name, or if you have the NPI for the providers, or the plan code or number. However, we do still allow for free text entries because we understand that Even though you might have a referral from a provider, they may not be a Medi-Cal provider, and thus they're not on our provider master file copy. So we do still allow pre-test entries to put in for the referral source. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm going to show you how to do your patient registration. Okay. Oh, I signed out. Well, let's sign back in. Okay, so as I had previously discussed, the registration module has been removed from the legacy and is now available on the web. We've included a new hyperlink here at the top, so you just click on registration. And the first part of any registration is to search for your client and determine if your client is currently registered in CMSNet or not. This is covered in another webinar, so I'm just going to go ahead and say new patient. Okay. Now the CI inquiry is also included in another webinar. However, I'm going to go ahead and go through this so that we can do a new patient from start. So just have a little patience with me while I register this, get this claim index number. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this is the tab that we'll be spending most of our discussion on, the patient information. As you can see, there's several tabs across the top, and each one will have its own webinar dedicated so that you can just search for the area that you're interested in when you're looking for the webinar information. So the patient registration comes up, and the first information here is all the details at the top of the page. So the information we just previously entered on the statewide client index search is already carried over. And then some of these fields should look familiar to you. So you're going to put in your case number, and those of you that put a D for a temporary number, you do that. And there's some counties that do a direct case assignment, and they just put an A for the assignment. Or if it's like a reopen case from long ago, we might not have very many of those left, but if you have a case number, you can manually type that case number in here. And here's the birth name, last, appellation, first, middle. So you need to put that in there. Okay. There's also an alias box here. You can add an alias by clicking the Add Alias. Or if you make a change to the name, you'll be prompted. It says, do you want to add this as an alias? And you can go ahead and say OK. So you can manually type one in here as well. Or if you don't want it, you can just click the X and get rid of it. Okay, so the remainder of our fields are pulled over from the inquiry. If you need to change them here, you can. There's a place here for the Social Security number. That's the patient's Social Security number. If the client had a pseudo assistant on meds, that will be retrieved and just be displayed only here. So we have the ethnicity, the language, the mom's first name, the mom's maiden name. This is one that we used to require, and now it's optional. There's a place for the mom's Social Security number. The registration status for this is in pending because it is a new case referral. And we also have a place here for the mom's Medi-Cal number. Now this used to be on the Medi-Cal coverage screen in the legacy, and we moved it here to keep all the mother's information in one location. And here's that checkbox I was telling you about. If the case is transferring to another county, you can just click that checkbox indicating yes. And that information prints on the face sheet. There's the information there, as well as an export to Business Objects to let you know that cases are being transferred in the transfer status. The next section is the current referral information. This kind of replaces the old referral section where you put your referral details of the received on date. your legal county, and your residence county. Okay, the referral type is going to default to case because with the introduction of the referral tracking module that's released, we have two different types of referrals. We have case referrals and service referrals. So all of the referrals that are entered through registration will be considered a case referral, so we just default that for you as a case referral. There's nothing you need to do. Which is referral entered on date, which is edited. That's just today's date. It's a system-generated one that is for reporting purposes. And then the referral status is going to be completed registration. Because we are completing this registration, you don't have to select it. The system just has that there for you. Now the referral source, you'll see that we've introduced several new referral sources with this release. Depending on what type of referral source you do select, you might have different formats to put the data in. For example, if I decide that I'm going to say that this referral came from the parent, you're going to see that I have one single dialog box to put the information. And I'm just going to put in Mr. and Mrs. this way. Now, if I received a referral and it was from a managed plan, you're going to see that my dialog box is completely changed because now, because I have a managed care plan, that's something that's a table in our system. So we would prefer you to search on the table and find that one. Now, there's also other options on here too. Regional center and schools are also tableized. But you will see things too, like let's say we don't say it was the parents, but maybe it's just one of the parents. Well, we're going to say that it's the mother. When you select mother, that's an individual. So you have a space to put in the last name, the appellation, the first name, and the middle name. So just realize that depending on what you select in your referral source, you might be having a different set of fields that you're going to need to complete in this referral area. Okay. The next section that we're going to discuss is the caseload. So as you probably know, we introduced caseload a few years ago, and it's available now in CMSNet Legacy for selection. However, most of the counties are not participating in using it. So we have default caseloads already pre-set up for you. So you'll see that there's a generic caseload type. And I'm on as a Los Angeles user, so there's also different types of caseloads that are there for them. However, most of the counties will just have a generic caseload type. If you choose to participate in our caseload distribution, we would be glad to help you set up your caseloads, how you distribute them in your county. And you can create caseload codes to select. You'll see that there's several of them in Los Angeles. They have a large caseload in the system and distributing their cases. There are also counties that are not choosing to participate and you're not interested in doing that. You still can continue to assign your case managers to the cases in this area here. Now, because I'm signed on to Los Angeles, we don't allow you to add contacts in this area. If I was signed on as another county, there'd be a button here to add your case managers and assign them roles. And what we would do is we would create a caseload structure for you. So the next time you get another referral, and let's say Mary was the nurse and Susie was the caseworker, and you get a referral and you want to assign that case to that particular combination of nurses and case managers in the future, you would see that as a generic caseload type, and you'd be able to pick that in the list. I might do a separate webinar just to talk about this caseload section, but in general, for the non-participating counties, there's really not much that you need to do in this area. The next section is related to the diagnoses code. And as I had mentioned, the diagnoses is now an optional entry. So you don't have to put 000 just to get past it. If you do know the diagnosis, if it comes in on the referral, it's great to put it in here. You just go and type in the code. And you can click Find or press Enter. And you get a dialog box to select the one you want. Okay. You can also use the description if you don't know the code. We'll find all the descriptions that have that word in it. You can add that to the list. These fields were present in the legacy diagnosis and treatment. These are optional. You can select if it's for a treatment condition or if it's, you're trying to rule something out and pick diagnostic. Okay. If you want to change the priority of something and move it up in the list, let's say I want to move this heart disease up in the list, I can just go ahead and use the up and down arrows on the side. We've removed the 1, 2, 3 priority listing over here on the side that was in the legacy. And you can enter an unlimited amount of diagnoses codes here and move them up and down in priority as you choose. If it's one that you don't want, if it's an error, you just click the X to remove it. The next section we're going to discuss is the primary addressee and the patient addressee section. And to add those, you click on the Add Addressee button, and you receive this web dialog box. Now this is how we enter all of our contacts in the new modules. You'll be popped up with a dialog box to enter your information, and then when you're done, you click the Save button. So for this initial entry, we need to identify what type of addressee we're entering. Are we entering it for the patient, or are we entering it for the primary addressee? And remember, the primary addressee is who receives the mail. So let's go ahead and say we're going to for the patient. You'll see the relationship the patient is self. Okay. The name defaults to our patient, who we already have partially registered. There's a place to put an attention line, and also an address. You'll put in the zip code, click Find, and then we'll put in the city and the state. There's also an address line too if you needed to put an apartment number or some additional information for mail for this particular patient. Now we changed a little bit of the display for the phone numbers. We used to just have a phone number field. Now remember, the phone number for the patient is optional, but if you wanted to add a phone number, you click the Add Phone button, and then you get a box to enter the information in. We'll say that this is the preferred number. You're going to select what type of phone number it is, and then put in the number. If there's an extension, okay, you'll need to identify the relationship of this phone number to the patient. In this case, it's their own. And then there's a place for phone notes. If you don't want to keep the phone number, you can go ahead and click the X to remove it. Remember, it is optional on the patient, so I can use that here. Now there's 3 buttons at the bottom. There's Save. When we're completed with this, we'll save it. I can reset if I don't want to save this information, if I updated something in error or I have the wrong address, or I can just go type over it. Or I can close this and not save it either. I'm going to go ahead and say Save. You see that my patient registration is now updated in this section, and I'm going to add another addressee. The primary and the patient are required here. Okay, you'll see that the addressee type defaults to primary because that's the only thing I can now enter. But we have to identify the relationship to the patient. So who is the person who's going to be receiving the correspondences from SANASET for this? This is the primary addressee. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is the mother. And then we added a new field here called Copy From. If the address and contact information is the same as the patient, you can say that you want to copy it from the patient. And we'll go ahead and pull over any contact information that's present. The phone number would have pulled over as well if I have any that on the patient. And then you need to type in the name of the contact. So this is the mom. I'm going to go ahead and add a phone because it's required here. Relationship to patient is defaulted because we selected it from the table above. And then if you want to have notes, you can add those. So, go ahead and save. So that's how you add an addressee. Now, if I had made a mistake and I want to go back and I want to edit some information, you can just click on the hyperlink and it will reopen that dialog box. Let's say I needed to update my information over here. I want to say please call after 1. It was incorrect, and I have the wrong phone number. And then I can go ahead and save that. You can also add a second contact phone number if you want to do that. And you can save. Okay, those phone numbers will update here, and so does all of the addressee information in their relationship. Okay, the next section that I'm going to discuss is in the other information. We retained the county chart number field that was present in the legacy, and anything that was entered there previously will carry over here. This is exported to Business Objects as a free text field for counties that you know what you use it for. And we changed the HRIS indicator to a checkbox. It used to say HRIS yes, no, and now if this client is an HRIS participant, you just click this checkbox, and then that indicates yes. Okay, we have the known to flag, and this is information that comes on the SCI inquiry. So if the person was also known to meds or healthy families, you might see meds, comma HF, comma CCS, known to program, and then the date that you did your last SCI inquiry. Then you have the registered by user, the registered on, the last updated by, and the last updated on. Now, if I choose to go back, I'm going to lose this information that I just entered on this client. So you're not going to want to go back unless you've just gone in this record and you don't want to save anything. You can also click the reset button, which will reset any new entries that I put in here. So on this new client that we're doing, it would